Okay, so last time we actually made a character controller along with a camera, and just a redemonstration of that. We can now move and look in the same direction. We're a little slow. We can increase that. I'm just going to increase that. Normally, go to our player, move player speed up to about 5. That looks good to me. Okay, today we're going to learn about collisions and triggers, and how we would go about detecting collisions and triggers in code. Okay, so first of all, let's set up a way that we're actually going to handle that. Now, I'm thinking for a trigger, let's have some lava and let's have some spikes, right? So I'm gonna make a another cube. I'm gonna flatten it out a bit. There we go. This will be the next area in our game. Just snap this to that. That looks perfect. Remember, the snap key is holding down V. You can pick a vertex, snap to another vertex. Okay. So I'm going to move this to the floor. So that way we know that's there. I'm going to create another 3D cube. Going to move up. Let's make a material for this. This is going to be like a spike. So let's make it kind of tall. It's not. We'll just call it spike, but we don't have a model for it. So I'm just going to keep it like that, and then we're just going to imagine that it's a spike. And materials, we made one for the player, one made for the floor. Let's make another one for the spike. And then all we have to do is change the albedo. Let's make it, it's a good spike color. Make it teal, maybe? Yeah, sure. So if we walk into that, that's going to hurt us. And now let's make another material. We're going to make some like lava, I think. So I'm just going to name this lava. And of course, lava's got to be red. All right. Now let's make lava. 3D cube. Call that lava. Oop. There we go. And we're gonna flatten this one out because lava is not supposed to be too big. Kind of like that. And we'll also make it kind of bigger. Drag that in. So now we have lava and a spike, right? So spike is like a physical object, but lava is more liquidy. So what we want to do is our collider is actually going to be a trigger. We can walk through it. A spike is a physical object that we are not able to walk through, so I can change that. I can also edit the collider and make it like, if I say I don't want the player to go right to it, I want him to be, if he's like right here in front of me, he can take some damage too. So we'll keep that there. So the collider for the spike is now not quite the physical representation. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. For triggers, it's more so important. Like I'll say if he goes anywhere near this lava, he gets hurt. So if he jumps over it, he still gets hurt. Okay. So now that we've edited our colliders, clicking this little fancy doohickey here in the inspector and made that a trigger, let's test it out. Let's move over, go into our lava. So you can see that we're actually going through the material itself. Because as a trigger, collision isn't detected and we're not stopped by it. We can just go right through it. But if we go to the spike, so you can see that I'm trying to go through the front of the spike. It's not working, right? Because this is a collision like right there. However, if I go from the side, again, I can get right up to it. My hat's a little big. This is a great way to identify some things. So for the hat, I want to make the hat a trigger. So that way, or actually, you know what? I can just delete the collider on the hat. That way, we won't bonk into stuff. So I'll do that. Remove the hat there. Let's save everything. So we got this set up. We got a spike in lava. However, nothing happens because we have to script something that happens to it. So let's go ahead and make health for our player. So I'm going to create a C# script. Call this player health. We'll make a public float total health, starting health, I should say. And I'll make that equal to, we'll make it equal to 100. Lowercase that. We do camel case here. So we got a foot, that's our starting health, right? And we don't need starter update. Not of right now. We don't need either of those two API calls. So we have a health amount here in the script. But we want to be able to take damage and add health in case we have a health pickup, right? So let's go ahead and make some functions here. I'm going to do a public void add health. Right? And I'm going to input int, well, I guess a float amount. And basically all I'm doing is that, I guess starting health is going to be 100. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just modify starting health. Actually, we'll rename it. Starting health, it should just be health. Right? And that makes a lot more sense. So health is going to be plus equals amount. And we're allowed to go over for our health for right now. And then we'll do public void decrease health by a float amount. And we'll do health minus equals amount. And we'll say if health is greater than 0, less than 0, then health is just going to be equal to 0. We want to say it's 0. We're not going to go below the amount of health we have. And then we'll do a debug.log. Player is dead. And it should be less than or equals. So basically, this is the first time we're doing a debug.log, but this is basically putting things in the console. Debug.log is kind of like a system ... to print line if you've done Java, or like a cout in like C. You're basically just writing something in the console for us to see later whenever this code executes. It's useful for debugging, hence the debug call. And then when we're logging, and then we're adding in a string as our message. And strings always have to be in double quotes. These two things here. So we got a way to add health and decrease health. But now we need somehow a way to decrease the health that we have. And I'm also, actually, before we do this, I'm going to put a debug log here. Health decreased, comma, current health, and then add in our health. And I'm going to put that below amount after we actually do the decrease. And then I'm going to copy this, Control C, Control V, but health increased for add health. So let's go ahead and put that on our player once it's done compiling. Okay, well that took a while, but whatever. So we'll add player health here. So now we need a script for spike and lava. Now, the way I kind of like doing this is we'll just create something here. C# script. We're going to call this damage dealer. So this is basically going to be a script that we can place on anything that's supposed to do damage to our player. So let's open it up. And we do public float damage amount. So the amount of damage that happens when we get collide or whatever. And I'll make that equal to 5 or 10 actually. We don't need a starter update, but what we do need, since we're placing on these things that have collision, if I do Control-Shift-M in Visual Studio, this is a way to implement all the functions that you can actually override from mono behavior. Because remember, mono behavior is a parent. So it has a bunch of methods that we can override and use to our own as we wanted to. And you can like look at all these different things here. Now the ones we want to look at is on trigger enter I'm going to click on that, and on collision enter. This is going to be a 2-for-1. On collision enter basically means is if I have a collider on this object, on this whatever object that I'm attached to, if there's a collider on it, this will get called whenever another collision collider interacts with me. And so basically what that means is that we can actually, you see this parameter here, collision, that is the collision event from that we have gotten. So what I can do is that collision.gameObject, I get the attached game object. And what I can do here, there's two things I can do. One, since we've tagged our player, if I do .compare tagged, and I put player, and this returns a bool, right? So I would put this in an if statement. If collision.gameObject.compare tag basically means is if the game object I've hit in this collision has the tag player, what I can do is that collision.getGameObject. So again, get the attached game object .get component, and a script counts as a component. Like all those things on the inspector are all components. This basically means out of those components on that game object, I want to try to get something called player health. I can actually store that here. So if I make it player health, right, and make that equal to this, put a semicolon, we now have a reference to the script, to the component of player health on the player from this collision. Then I can do health.get our API falls is add or decrease health, right? Decrease health by damage amount. So we're saying like if something enters our collision, we're checking to see if that's the player, and then we're grabbing the component that it should have player health and decreasing that. Now this is a very simple way to do it by comparing a tag, and this is on collision. This will only work if your collision is not a trigger. That is why we have a trigger instead for the ones that are triggers. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, I'm going to keep this here, but I'm going to comment it out. Oh, I do not want to do it like that. I want to do it, I believe, like this. Yep. So we're gonna go ahead and just comment the entire thing out. I'm gonna move this over here. And now what we're gonna do is that there's something in Unity that works way better, I feel, than just comparing tags, because tags are one-dimensional. You only have one tag on a thing. But if you're looking at more complex objects, then what you can do is something called try-get-component. So we're going to do the same thing. If collision dot game object, and now here we're going to do try get component. So we're trying to get a component from this thing. So it's going to be out, and it's going to be player health. Basically means that we're trying to get a reference to the player health of this collision. If it doesn't have it, it's going to return false. If it does have it, this component that we want, it's going to return true. So because we're looking to get a specific component, we're looking to access the player health script, we know our player is only going to be the one that has the player health script, so we don't really care about the tag. This is another way to do it, basically. And we have a reference to health, so because we have the out health here, that is basically saying, okay, we got this reference, now we can use it. So you can do the same thing here, health.decrease health by damage amount. So either of these ways work, basically. Either you can compare a tag and try to get the tag to see if it's the player or whatever you want, or you can try to get a specific component from that. And that's, we can say player. Another way we could be doing this is if we go to player health, because player has a collider on it. We could actually do the on trigger enter stuff or on collision enter here, and then just automatically do it. And you check to see if what we ever encounter is it has the damage dealer component, and then just decrease it like that. Either way works. But we're going to go ahead and continue with this way because it's already set up. So we're going to do the exact same thing here for our on trigger enter. On trigger enter is the same thing as on collision enter, but for triggers. So if I do this and I do other, I just have to rename it other. This should work on both triggers and game objects. So I'm going to go ahead and save the scene. Spike. We're going to call this, we're going to grab in damage dealer, damage amount 10, and lava. We'll put in damage dealer, but we'll say that it does 50 health because it's lava. Okay, now let's see what happens here. And now I'm going to look in the console because we wrote debug statements. Oh, we did debug statements and add health and decrease health. So if we go over here, we're looking at the console, the bottom log, right? So if I just smack my head into the spike here, oop, current health 90. And we can see if I click on the player, my hierarchy, because we made health public, we can actually see it decrease in real time. So if I enter this collision here, 80, right? Because remember the collider on the spike is in front of it as well. So I'm keep hitting it 70. Now if I go to the lava, oh, I walked over it, 50 health decreased. So now we're interacting with the game world via collision. That's the way to do it. And now our health is 0, player is dead. I can keep doing that. I'll keep getting the same messages over and over again. And that is going to be triggers. That is going to be triggers and colliders for right now. Next time we're going to be looking at prefabs. Prefabs are really simple. All they take is a single video just to explain what they are. But that's something that we'll be looking at next time. All right, see you then.